Hi there, and welcome to Real Talk in ELT, a podcast about the reality of teaching English. I'm your host, Kelly Pennington. Thank you for joining me today. So, ready?
Yes.
Do you have beer or tea?
Tea. No, that would be going against the establishment way too hard.
I thought it would be very appropriate. I have water, but it could be vodka, it could be whiskey. You never know what's in here. Anyways, okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Real Talk in ELT. I am here with Henrique Zamboni. I have to say, though, I do love your last name, and I'm always going to say it that way, even if I say it wrong, because do you know the Zambonis in the U.S.?
Yes, I have a very funny story from my first trip to Canada.
Please tell me. Oh, you went to the Canadians.
Yes, I got there and I had no idea what a Zamboni was. And and this guy said, "Oh my God, your last name is Zamboni? You have like a famous family around here?" And I said, "No, why? What's going on? Am I going to be arrested or something?" And he said, "No, you should definitely check out what a Zamboni is." And then when I got to the house where I was going to stay with the host family, they explained to me, "Oh, a Zamboni is like this machine that evens out the
It
surface
cleans
of
the ice and it
and
evens the surface,
yes."
yeah. And
And I
it's
was like,
super
I had
famous in
no
Canada.
idea.
Yeah, because of
Uh-huh.
they're huge hockey fans.
Yeah.
And the Zamboni, it's like it's super. Everybody loves the Zamboni, like
Uh-huh.
everybody. So you're just in such good company. Okay, so let me introduce you officially. So Henrique has been in ELT for almost 15 years. He has worked for different schools and language institutes as a teacher and teacher trainer. He holds a degree in Letras, the CELTA, the C2 Proficiency Certificate, and he is the founder of Inglés para Adolescentes. Yes?
Yes, that's me.
Yes. Okay, so when I first met Henrique, I have to tell this story. You were kind enough to share your markers with me. And then a couple of weeks later, we got to chatting and I wanted to have you on the podcast. And I loved you because anybody who works with teenagers, I love teenagers because they're angry at the world. It's like very identifiable sometimes.
Yes.
And then fast forward to last week, and we just started talking about burning down the establishment. And I was like, yes, Henrique, you totally have my vibe. So today we're going to talk about things that we never should talk about, right?
Yes.
So let's start with parsnips.
Let's see how this goes, right?
I don't know if our reputation is going to be better or worse after this podcast, but we will see.
Yes.
So
so when I was taking the CELTA in 2014, that's the first time I heard the word the acronym PARSNIPs, and I was taken aback because I was like, but these things kind of I had already been teaching things at that time for quite a few years, and I was like, but those things come up so naturally. How can we just not talk about these things?
It's like news. Yeah, it's just in their lives. It's in everybody's lives, right? I mean,
yeah, and especially nowadays, right? Because of social media, like it's impossible for you to go online for 5 minutes and not come across something about politics or something about sexual harassment or substance abuse. And
let me just clarify for those listening. Parsnips is politics, alcohol, religion, sex, narcotics, isms, like any ism that you can think of, and pork. So those are the the no-goes. So just in case anybody doesn't know what parsnips is, but go ahead, continue.
Yeah. And I guess if you teach things nowadays, we're on the same page. Like it's impossible not to talk about any of those things at some point. They come to class and they probably already know each other from their schools, if we're talking about a language institute, for example, or if not, they just on the way to the room, they're going to be talking about something. Oh, have you seen what happened? Or because news are spreading very fast and kind of to everyone nowadays.
Everything's viral. It all goes, and it's all on the person in like literally on the person, meaning
Hmm.
it goes to their devices. We can't
Yeah.
control what people receive anymore. Everybody receives everything. I
Hmm.
mean, there's the algorithms online which kind of filter out what people tend
Hmm.
to look for. But
Yes.
yeah, I mean, they get this stuff on their phones, on
Hmm.
their computers, on their laptops, tablets, whatever, on their devices. So
Hmm.
shouldn't we be educating them on how to talk about these things in a respectful way, in a productive way? And
Definitely.
how do you do that?
Yeah, the thing is, when we talk about language lessons, we tend to overlook the fact that we're also teaching them about the world. And I think when we talk about language lessons, the doors are very open to these possibilities because it's all about communication in the end, right? So, I mean, uh, there are many ways we can approach these topics, but of course, we have to be respectful and we have to teach them that we can talk about these things in a very polite way and in a safe space. If we think about, for example, substance abuse, if we don't talk to them about it, they're gonna listen to, for example, Demi Lovato's new album, in which she's very open because she almost died like nearly 2 or 3 years ago. I'm not sure. And she talks about that in her songs because she survived and she is very outspoken about the bad things that substance abuse can cause. So it's hard not to talk to them about it, given the fact that they're actually listening to songs about this. So to make lessons more meaningful, we're gonna have to be less scared of the real world. You know.
And it's not that we're teaching them like, okay, so when we say like substance abuse and drugs and stuff, we're not teaching them how to use drugs. Like
Of
that's
course
not
not.
the idea. I mean, I hope nobody's interpreting that as
Yeah.
this is what we're thinking.
Hmm.
No, but this exists in the world. There's things
Yes.
that are happening. There's not here in Brazil, but at least where I'm from. There's legalization of medical marijuana, and now you
Hmm.
can have marijuana without having a prescription for it.
Hmm.
So and there's other countries that have this, and drug laws change. I mean, we're just focusing on drugs here, but we're
Hmm.
not teaching them how to smoke pot or the benefits of rolling a joint and lighting up with friends. No,
Yes.
that's not the point. But they're going to encounter these things, and for them to be able to express themselves, and we really just want them to have their own opinion about it, right? Because everybody's opinion is based on their family values and how they're raised, but they can't be sheltered from the information because if they don't know it exists, they're not going to know how to handle it when it comes up. And
Exactly.
especially for teenagers, I taught briefly at a school for a few years and taught all the FCE, teenagers that were looking to go overseas, go to Canada, go to the US, go to
Hmm.
Europe and do a semester abroad. You're going to find a lot of this stuff there.
Yes.
And you want your kids to be able to say no if they have to, and know what it is, and have and not be afraid to have that conversation with friends.
Exactly. It's the same thing about sex education. Yeah, it is usually frowned upon here in Brazil, for example. But if
Which is
they,
hilarious to me because Brazilians like are half naked all the time.
Mhm.
But we're like, no, 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 no. But don't do anything about that.
Yeah, because everything has to be like hidden, right? And
Right. Yeah.
yeah, this is the ambiguous aspect of Brazilian culture, in my opinion, as a Brazilian. Yeah. So everything
But
has to be like, oh no, let's not talk about it. But we know that it's happening out there, like, and it's happening all the time, a lot. But let's not approach such subject because it is too, dangerous, and we don't want to make people uncomfortable. Like, what?
but that in itself is the problem, that even as adults, I deal mostly with adult students. They have difficulty expressing themselves and their opinions about politics, for example. We won't go into sex and drugs. I mean, that's what teenagers are most interested in because they're just hormones are raging.
Yes.
I mean, it's in all the music and stuff. They get excited, whatever. But for example, politics. It's really kind of challenging to have conversations with adults about politics because the subject has been avoided. And then it causes this polarization that we're seeing now.
Yeah.
And we see that people are not able to really express their opinions and justify why they've come to that opinion. And I think moving forward, if we want the new generations, the teens that, and the adolescent kids that you're working with, they should be able to have those valuable conversations, not saying, this is my opinion, don't ask me why.
Yes, I agree. And it's not, I just want to be very clear. We're not encouraging listeners to, expose students to certain kind of things. For example, there's a song that Nicki Minaj released a couple of years ago, or maybe last year, I'm not sure. It's a WAP. I'm not even sure if that's how you pronounce it.
No, I'm so old now. I'm like,
when I listened to that song, I was like, and it was like a #1 hit on Spotify. So it's impossible to, I know that my niece listened to it. She was like 14, 15 at that time. And I never, like, I would never bring such a song to my lesson, but I know that they're listening to it. So I have to be prepared, like, in case they ask me, like, what does WAP mean? And what is she saying here? What, like, so I have to be prepared so as not to feel uncomfortable enough to freeze when asked certain things.
And also, I know that I've done this. I'm probably like the worst example, but my teenagers asked me one time, I cleared it with the coordinator, but they asked me one time, can we have a lesson on swearing? And I was like, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, you can have a lesson on profanity. And I made a lesson, and I wasn't encouraging them to say these things, but I want them to hear it. I want them to hear it in the context, because especially the kids that were going off to other countries, I want them to be able to protect themselves. And if they start hearing certain language, they know that this situation is getting a little heavy. So it's not that I'm like, okay, let's, you're going to learn all these words and I want you to use them correctly. No, I just want you to be aware that these things happen. And like you said, if they ask me a question, I can't be uncomfortable and be like, I have to be like, okay, so this is what this is. If you say this is the perception that other people are going to have of you. And if you say this might cause confrontation because . I'm not encouraging, but if they're already exposed to it, wouldn't you rather them be able to handle themselves better in that situation than to just not know what to do?
For me, that's what education comes down to. Preparing people, preparing the young generation for what comes next. So I believe this is really important.
Now, as you deal with teens, and this is your specialty, my friend, how do you deal with the teachers, the parents and or teachers that you might work with, the community, because some people might not have the same perspective as you. So, how can you deal with parents that say, listen, that's not okay? And I mean, obviously it's their child. We have to respect them. But at the same time, what do we do?
Yeah, I'm going to share a personal story. Like recently, there was this show on that became a hit. It's a Netflix show called Heartstopper. Have you seen it?
I haven't. I'm sorry.
Okay, so
What's it about?
I might as well just say, like, tell you what it is, and
okay,
so you have an idea, and also the listeners can kind of follow my rationale. So it's a story of a guy who falls in love with his friend at school. They're like high school students. But one of the friend, they sit together because it's an English show. So they have these classes that they go, and there's a mix of like second years to with third years, so it's kind of a mixed class, and they sit in pairs. This guy who sits next to to the main character, he's like a very popular guy at school, and he dates girls, and the boy falls in love with him. But it ends like this is not going to be much of a spoiler because it happens like quite in the beginning of the series.
Okay. Sorry,
Uh,
everyone, if you're planning on
yeah,
watching this.
but like around the second or third episode, the guy discovers that he might be bi because he gets interested in the boy as
Okay.
well,
Hmm.
and then the story develops. So it's a I believe that the LGBTQ community really liked the series, and it became a hit, and it is really cute. I highly recommend it to everyone. Um, anyway, this student of mine, she's a 13-year-old girl. She was obsessed with it. She wouldn't stop talking about the show. Like 9 out of 10 words out of her mouth were about Heartstopper. And she
Oh,
was
that's
like,
good.
"Teacher, you have to watch it. It's really cool. It's really fun." There are books, and the writer of the books is involved with the production of the show. So it's all like very the stories are very intertwined. I watched it, and like during a weekend, it's very short, and on Monday I told her, "Hey, guess what, I watched Heartstopper." And she was really excited. We talked about it. Then I prepared lessons with interviews from with the actors, and then we learned some vocabulary that they use in the series. I while I was watching, I took some notes, so I was able to make some very personalized lessons because she was very into the show. Yeah,
I'm sure she actually really appreciated that
she
too.
loved it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
she,
super
she,
engaging
yeah.
and uh-huh.
Yeah, it's like part of her world. That's what
Right.
teens want. That's what
Right.
everybody wants. Yeah, but
Hmm.
especially teens, I'd say. And then out of the blue, suddenly she mentioned that actually I asked. She didn't mention it uh, she wasn't the one who said it, but I told her like so do you watch it with your sister or with your parents? What's it like? And she said, "Oh, my sister is watching it with me because I've been watching it for the like fourth time now." But my mom kind of saw some scenes, and she said, "Oh, I don't like you watching this kind of thing because it might encourage you to become a lesbian."
Okay. Sorry.
Yes, no,
Sorry to laugh, but
yeah, no,
okay. Yep.
it is funny, and I was,
Okay.
and I kind of had a talk to her
Mm,
about it, to my student, and I said,
right.
"Look, you have to understand that your mom's from a different generation, and this thing that she told you demonstrates kind of a concern that she has towards you. Not that she will not uh, love you the way you are or anything like that. We can't jump into conclusions. Yeah, I don't know your mom. I don't know about your family dynamics. So, but what I can tell you is, parents sometimes are scared for their kids because they're afraid that their kids will suffer. So you can, but you and I told her, but you can talk to your mom about it and tell her, hey, mom, look, this is not encouraging me to do anything. I just like the story. I just think it's cute. Like find a way to have an open conversation to your mom about it.
That's a really good suggestion. Did
Yeah.
she? Was she
I
able to?
didn't follow up on
Oh.
on
No,
that,
but
but
I think that's like a very mature way to say,
mhm,
why don't you have a conversation with your mom about it? I mean,
yeah.
it might make the mom uncomfortable. They might not
Uh-huh.
actually have the conversation, but
Hmm.
at least it's giving the option, like, don't hide it from your
Yes.
parents. Don't just have a talk about it,
Hmm.
because that's the only way of resolving things,
Yeah.
is trying to communicate what's
Hmm.
going on in your head and what's going on in
Yeah.
theirs.
And honestly, I don't think anything is going on in her head. She's 13. I didn't get to talk to her about sexuality or anything like that. I wouldn't feel uh, comfortable, but I have met teachers of teenagers who have told me that their students opened up to them, saying like these kind of things. Listen, I'm gay. My parents don't know. So like,
because they trust us too.
yeah, exactly.
As like a neutral adult that
Yeah.
cares for them, like we
Hmm.
obviously care for our students, so
Yeah.
that makes sense
And
that they would
for
open up.
example, in this situation, I showed her I was so open to enjoying the show. I was open enough to make the lessons all about the show with a gay couple, and she probably knows that I'm okay with it, and she could be okay with coming out to me, and I would have to be ready if that happened. Yeah, but I honestly think she's too young, and maybe she hasn't even got there yet. She's not thinking about this aspect of her life. At least, like when I was 13, I wasn't really thinking about
Yeah.
these things.
And I think that sometimes we automatically assume from an adult perspective
Hmm.
that this is the first thing that they're thinking of, like who
Yeah.
they're attracted to. And that
Hmm.
I think that might not be the case.
Yeah.
They just might like to have that story. They might
Mm.
think that it's interesting that they uh, insurmountable odds that these two people would connect with each other, and
Mhm.
they're not thinking boy and boy, they're just thinking of the
Mhm.
connection that these people
Yeah.
have. Sometimes we assume of what young people are interpreting from things,
Yes.
and that's
Mhm.
not necessarily their perspective of it, and so
Mhm.
that's why conversations are
Yeah.
really important.
But to coming back to your question, like honestly, I don't feel like I disrespected her mom. Uh, but I didn't go to her mom talk about it. I didn't feel like that was my place, But I think I was respectful enough, to tell her, hey, look, your mom is the most precious thing in your world. So try to make this connection. Try to explain to her how you feel and why you like the series. And uh, you know, uh, I don't know, just talk to your sister. Then talk to someone in your family who you trust, and this sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's all about the communication of it. I mean, this specific show was about a gay couple, which
Hmm.
is fine, and the romance of that. But it can be anything. It can be
Hmm.
anything on the parsnips. It can be anything relatively controversial. It can be something that they're not quite sure about. I mean, the goal of learning a language is to be able to communicate.
Hmm.
And so our job is really to give them the tools to be able to communicate better.
Yeah.
But if we never put them in the situation that it's uncomfortable to communicate, or it's
Hmm.
hard, like it's that, or they have miscommunication, which I think is even better when during a class they're trying to talk to each other and there's obvious miscommunication. It's like, no, 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 that's not what I mean. I
Hmm.
mean this. And they have to
Yeah.
like explain themselves and just it could be about anything. It could be about UFOs. I don't care if it's on the parsnips list or if it's something
Hmm.
crazy like conspiracy theories. It's just really good to have them communicate. That's the
Yes.
whole point of
And
language class,
spark
right?
meaningful conversations. Yeah.
Right.
Because
Right.
all of this I'm sharing happened in English. So, it was good enough for me.
That's I think it's wonderful. One of the other things that I had on my list that I wanted to ask you about,
Mhm.
and actually it kind of relates to what we were just talking about, is this idea of these generations and how nowadays, this is kind of my perception.
Mhm.
It's my perception because I find myself doing it sometimes. I'm like, oh, I'm getting so old. Is demonizing these new cultural trends like video games and social media. I'm not
Mhm.
a huge fan of social media, but I don't think I would have been a huge fan even as a teenager. I don't
Mhm.
know. I was kind of a different kind of person.
Mhm.
But that generational gap and how we kind of demonize what's important
Mhm.
to these young people, and how
Yeah.
you can kind of bridge that gap and not disconnect with them by
Yeah,
incorporating what's
I see what
important.
you mean. Well, I usually tell teachers like who take courses with me, or whenever I'm like giving a talk and we're talking about teenagers, I always tell them we seem to, when we reach adulthood, we seem to forget everything that was behind uh, our like 19 or 20-year-olds. And it is strange because what happens? Do we? I don't. At least for me, there are many things I don't remember from my teenage years. And I've some people have told me exactly the same. Like me too. Like I sometimes maybe it was so much suffering and so much angst that our brains maybe prefer to forget, kind of let that go. Yeah.
To be honest, sometimes I'm really grateful that I was born in like the 80s. Like, oh God, I was raised in the 80s and 90s. There's no incriminating proof of the stupid things I did on social media. Because I actually think it'd be quite hard, much harder now with everybody seeing every aspect of your life. But yeah, we forget that we were young and dumb and running around and doing stupid things.
Yes.
Because we're trying to figure out who we were.
Exactly.
And then we don't allow the newer generations to figure out who they are because we expect them to already know.
Yeah. So yeah, my suggestion is always like, ask them to explain why they love it so much, why they like that so much, and how that makes them feel. Yeah. So when it comes to, for example, social media, I don't see teenagers being like big fans and really passionate about social media. Um, so maybe that's my perception.
I'm just
Or
saying that they're really good at it. Like they jump on the trends. Like they jump very quickly. Where our generation, I don't know how old you are, but we're just kind of stuck. Like it takes us years to transition to the new app, and they're just like bing, 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 like little pinballs. They jump all over the place. They're great with it. So
yeah. No, I'm 36, by the way.
Oh, we're the same age. Twinsies, hey.
Yeah. So yeah, but for me it comes very naturally because I like these things. I like whatever is new and like, oh, I want to check that out. Like I remember when Twitter came out, I was like, okay, I'm gonna subscribe. I want to try it. Like people were like, what? How does it work? Why? Why would I just tweet things and post them to like but
just send them out into the world.
yeah,
to like, no one in particular.
People, yeah, like followers. Who will follow me, right? But yeah, so yeah, actually, these things they create really great topics for lessons, I believe. Yeah, and you can actually engage students in this aspect of explaining to you, why they like it, how does it work, and these kind of things.
Actually, let me tell you a hilarious story. I don't know if it's hilarious. It's quite embarrassing for me. So I have a student. He's 15 now, 15 or 16. And he's a really funny kid, but he's a great kid. We joke around a lot. He's really fun. And the other day, it was a few months ago. I mean, this is 2022, just so you know. A few months ago, he told me, he was like, well, didn't you see on the WhatsApp story thing? I was like, WhatsApp has stories? And he was like, Kelly, wait, you don't know that there's like the stories like on Instagram, but it's on WhatsApp? I was like, no way, really? When did they do that? Is that new? He's like, oh my God, you're so old. I was like, okay. And then I just stopped and I stopped the whole time because I use WhatsApp to like message people back and forth. I never really looked at any of the features. I was just like Messenger. That's it in my head.
Yeah, there's the status thing, right?
Yes, the status. Yeah. Okay. So he was like, it was all over the statuses. How do you not? I was on my status. I was like, I did not check. I'm so sorry. I didn't know it existed. And so then I actually just stopped the class. And I gave him some thinking time and prep time. And I made him give me a tutorial, all in English, like teaching old people how to use WhatsApp. And that's what he did. So like the whole class, I was just sitting there and he was teaching me how to do things. And he was so excited. He was like, I can't believe you don't know how to do this. I looked like an idiot.
See,
but it was fun.
You did it. You made the lesson all about him. And
I was
that's
like, thank you for showing me.
Yeah.
I still don't use it, by the way.
Yeah, sometimes I use it, but honestly, stories is more like Instagram. Yeah. But there's a joke like that's been going around. Like everything has stories. Like everything. Facebook.
I don't log
Instagram.
into anything
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
I'm on Instagram. That's it. So,
Hmm.
okay. Then I do have a couple more questions because I don't
Yes.
want to run out of time with
Great.
you. So I love it, like honest conversations, treating them like humans, like adults, and,
Oh
and
yeah,
trying.
that's like paramount. Talk to them like they're adults, but keep in mind that they aren't. They're growing up, they're not grown-ups, but don't treat them as kids. They will hate you for it.
This is
Yeah.
like a very fine line to balance, right? Because
Yeah.
they don't have experience, life experience
Hmm.
yet.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them do. Unfortunately, some kids have
Yeah.
trauma and awful things
Hmm.
happen, and they have to
Yeah, of
grow up really
course.
quickly.
Hmm.
But they don't have a lot of life experience
Yeah.
yet. But they're not kids, so we can't baby step around them.
Yeah.
We have to just,
Hmm.
have a conversation. So, how do you? Here's my question to you: do
Hmm.
you grade language in your classroom?
Uh, well, just as I grade language with adults, I don't. There aren't many secrets when it comes to like what language I'm going to use. Of course, we're not gonna talk like a business person,
Yeah.
yeah. But like talk to them naturally and as if you were talking to a friend. You were just making a friend, and yeah, that should come out very naturally.
Yeah,
You
I've
know.
always found that whenever I'm observing people, whenever I've taught classes with teens and
Hmm.
adolescents, if you just talk to them like you're talking to a friend,
Hmm.
like hanging out, they respond better in
Yeah.
classes.
Hmm.
So that's been my experience too. And then how do you, because I'm assuming that you do have these controversial topics in your class or things, that's the parsnips, things that people
Uh-huh.
might not bring up. Um, how do you teach them about like agreeing and disagreeing? Because teens,
Hmm.
they're super hormonal
Yeah.
and they're just like raging emotions
Hmm.
sometimes. So how do you balance that, the emotion together with, okay, the language, and let's try and make this productive?
Hmm.
Do you do anything or?
Yeah, like right now, most of my students are like one to one. I but I when I So this is not a big issue in my classes, but in the past when I taught groups in schools, it could be. So and there were moments I had to intervene and say, "Hey, let's stop it. This is not healthy. We're not getting anywhere. So we're gonna come back to this another time." You know, there's
No, because they're like little hotheads.
yeah.
This is one of the reasons I love them. They get super passionate about
Hmm.
things, but we have to kind of like channel that energy. So I
Yeah.
wonder how you channeled it. Just kind of like, okay, let's regroup and go back.
Mhm.
Did you
Yeah,
do
so for
anything else?
example, whenever I had like discussions or like people against or for something, I would ask them like the one strategy is okay, who wants to be for? And then you choose the ones who wanted to be for something they're gonna be against because they will
I did that too.
because they will naturally they won't have that much emotion to defend their point of view.
Mm.
So this is a strategy that you can use. But I have also chose to, okay, let's go for the real thing. Yeah, if share whatever you feel like sharing, and but let's always keep in mind, do it respectfully. Let's not raise our voices. Yeah, you have to set the rules before conversation starts. Yeah, and this is what we do. Even like you see young learner teachers doing that, those little agreements in the beginning of the year. Teenagers should also have that. uh,
So how do you do this with your,
yes, I do. I
what
did
do you
this
have?
with them,
Right.
like in the first few classes, not in the first class, because I used the first lessons to kind of get to know them and vice versa. But like around the third, fourth lesson, okay, so let's discuss rules about homework, about doing exercises and stuff. And then we kind of integrate their thoughts and also how they feel about the rules we're presenting. So and also keep in mind these moments, like whenever we have discussions, let's be friendly, let's not raise voices, let's be polite and this and that. So we have to bear in mind that if we have to be firm and fair throughout the whole year. Yeah.
And what other helpful tips and hints? Because I think that sometimes people, well, let me preface this whole conversation. There's very, very special people in the world that can deal with young learners, right? And
Mhm.
I feel like you have to have this really amazing personality. I
Mhm.
don't have it.
Mhm.
But to deal with young learners, you have to be like a very special person.
Yeah.
And to deal with adults, okay, but teenagers, for some reason, there's a lot of people that don't like the tweens and preteens
Mhm.
and the
Mhm.
teenagers. And how would you not instruct, but how would you try to open people's eyes to the possibilities that, because I really think that the teenagers are, they were one of my favorite groups to
Mhm.
teach, that age group. So you know, people who have these strong negative perceptions of
Mhm.
teenagers, how would you tell them to approach or rethink?
Well, unfortunately, there's not much we can do about it because, for example, I don't feel very comfortable in a young learner lesson. I have
Same.
I have tried. I've
Yeah.
already taught kids uh, for like, oh, a teacher is missing. Can you just make up for him today? That's just today, okay? But like the experience wasn't that joyful for me as I think it's
It was
supposed to
quite
be.
stressful
Yeah.
actually for me too. I don't know why. It doesn't, I think there's like a personality doesn't
Yeah, so it's
fit.
not like
Yeah.
okay, I don't like kids or anything. Like no, I like them. I feel like there's just so much involved in teaching them. That's not a lot about language. You know what I mean?
Oh yes, I had to multiple times go to bathrooms with it's not my thing.
Yeah. So like I
I
really
mean, but
admire.
they're kids. They're
Yeah.
babies, you know?
Exactly. It's so if you don't like teaching twins, that's okay. You don't have to be to hate yourself for it. That's okay. It's just you prefer older teens. That's fine. Uh, but yeah, there are ways of like dealing with them, and there are things we can learn. Like so, keep in mind that twins, for example, they're more immature and they're more energetic. Some of them are going to be standing up most of the time because they're still trespassing that life stage of like being kids and being teenagers, and that's fine. So there are some, maybe like being open and talking to other teachers will help a lot. Because in the beginning, I remember I used to get very uncomfortable whenever a kid was like standing up all the time. And then
They
I
just need to move.
after
Some
some
kids just need to
reflection, I
move,
was
yeah.
like, okay, this is like it's about him. He needs to be standing up. That's fine. I remember I had a student who used to like really do the exercises like standing up.
Okay.
As long as he was doing it, I was fine with it.
I
Uh,
mean, he wasn't bothering anybody else and he
no,
was doing his work. So if that's what he
exactly.
needs,
So
it's
there's a lot
okay.
of like pencils like falling, a lot of erasers falling from the chair. They stand up and they get it and they sit back again, and then the notebook falls.
It's
It's just
distractions
it's
after
yeah, but it's
distraction.
just
Yeah.
like what it is like. But there are many strategies that we can use. For example, brain breaks. Whenever you feel like there's
Love these.
a
Yeah.
lot of
Hmm.
energy, like overflowing. Okay, let's take a second. Let's listen to this very calming and soothing song. Okay, 2 minutes. Let's breathe. Let's describe this photo. What can you see? Then there are some strategies that we can use.
So, jumping onto that. So, with your tweens and teens, do you use brain breaks? How frequently do you use them?
That would.
Especially one on one, do you have to
Mhm.
use them more because it's quite intense for them to
Uh-huh.
be like for a full lesson just one to one?
Yeah, that would depend on the students, right? Because some students they're more focused, like naturally, like adults. Some adults have attention span longer than other people, and that's fine. So we have to kind of sense, and also ask them like, look, whenever you feel like it's not being productive anymore, you tell me, and we're gonna do something else for a little while. We're gonna do something more fun. Yeah. But in our planning, I highly recommend this element of stirring and still. Like, always plan an activity that is more like energetic, and then something that is more focused, and then you go back to something that is more eye catching or more, visual, and then, okay, let's do the exercise now. Now let's speak. Now
Variety.
let's listen. Now let's
Hmm.
watch. Now let's draw. Let's describe. Always like variety. That's, yeah, the word is key.
Okay. Like interaction patterns need to kind
Hmm.
of,
Yeah.
change a little bit. And then I know that you had that wonderful example of your student and the Netflix show. So
Hmm.
where else do you find inspiration for materials and lessons? Because
Uh-huh.
they live in a whole nother world than us
Yeah, from
sometimes.
them. I always
Okay.
ask them like, "How was your weekend? What did you watch? Did you listen to any music? Like, where did you go? What did you do there? So do your friends like the same things as you?" And then always like taking notes. I have this little notebook, and then I have the name of the student on top, and then I keep track of what they tell me. For example, I have this, um even their birthdays. I always ask, like, when's your birthday? Not that I believe in horoscopes or anything like that, but I like using this kind of information, in their lessons. So I keep track. I was introduced to doramas. Have you ever heard about
Is
them?
it the Asian? Oh
Yeah,
God. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, the Asian series or
Yeah.
dramas. Yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't know them, and then this new student of mine told me, "Oh, I love doramas," and I was like, "What are those? I don't know them." And she explained. So, like, you see, I am always updated to what's new out there because I keep asking them and investigating. Yeah.
And then do you integrate this with, because I'm sure some people are probably wondering, well, because
Mhm.
I do see a lot on teacher posts and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, do you use books with them? Do you follow course books? Do you integrate authentic materials? Because it sounds like there's a lot of personalization, but do you kind
Mhm.
of incorporate that into a normal course of study for your students?
I use it's all very subjective, and it's not
I
always the
know it's so
same.
hard to say
Yeah,
like this is what
with
you should
some
use for
students,
everyone.
with some
Yeah.
students, like, I have students preparing for the FC, then I go for the course book. Of course, it's really helpful. But some students who are more elementary, I also use course books because I feel like they need this kind of input. But the ones who are like B1, B2 level, I always use like authentic material. So either a song or a video. But I always keep in mind that I'm following some kind of uh, guideline. Okay, what should a student at this level be learning? So I don't just get things out of my head. I think that my 15 years of experience helped me with that. I don't really recommend like all teacher. If you're a novice teacher, maybe it's kind of risky to go down that road.
Or at least have like frameworks next to you where
Yeah.
you can kind of like reference, okay, so we need
Mhm.
to kind of go
Yeah.
here, and you can
Mhm.
get authentic materials, but maybe
Yes.
just kind of
Mhm.
line them up with like a
Yeah.
curriculum.
Yeah. So, for example, I saw this video on TikTok the other day, and it was a girl showing her Marvel collection, and the video was full of superlative adjective examples. So, like, show the most expensive item in your collection, show the item everyone wants to steal, show the newest item in your collection, show the strangest item in your collection. And I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna use it on my next superlative class.
Oh,
So
see, that's really, but it's Marvel, so it's really relatable
yeah,
for
yeah,
them.
exactly. So, like, uh I, before that, I didn't use an authentic material to teach superlative, but then I came across this really amazing example and meaningful for them. Yeah, and then I'm gonna add this to my list of authentic materials I can use. So I recommend that you start doing that if you teach teens or even adults, and
Maybe
if
start
you
a list or like
yes,
the book curriculum, and then you can
yes.
kind of and a lot of these things people think they have to do like the whole book and every authentic material.
No,
It's
of
just
course not.
sometimes you can just kind of integrate little things in here and there, and then it's just enough different from the course book that they get excited to learn something
Hmm.
or see something new, and then you can do some activities. So
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. But yeah, keeping track is very important. So you can actually, because we forget, so if we, this video is really cool. If you use it once, like in 2 months, you're gonna have forgotten about it. So you have to have like a document or something that you write on, so you can always revisit and use these
Well, an
things.
update too. I mean,
Yeah.
the Marvel is going to be around for a little bit, but
Hmm.
who knows in the
In
next
maybe
5 years.
five, yeah, maybe 5 years that will be because there's a new phase of Marvel. So
But then what you can
that,
do is use the Marvel for the older generation. So then you
yes,
just use it for
uh,
adults because it's reminiscent and vintage at that point.
exactly. But
Fun.
it's interesting, right? Because that's also something we take for granted. We think teenagers will only enjoy like really new stuff, um, but they also they revisit a lot of things from the past, especially because of TikTok, like these songs that are always uh, coming back as a strong trend. That then there are
I
also
know
there's
music
all
from like my childhood is coming back.
yeah.
It's amazing.
Hmm. So yeah, like it's like
Our
what
childhood.
happened with running up that hill because of Stranger Things. Yeah, like all teenagers from this generation, like it became a Generation Z hit.
Which is very bizarre because it's like you guys, and it's funny because they think it's theirs.
Mhm.
It's like, no, 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 this existed way
Yeah, and
before.
for example, I have my niece. She's 17, and she's like super in love with Kate Bush's entire album. Like, so she was interested in listening to more than running up that hill. So she was actually looking into Kate Bush, like who was she, like what other things did she like. And I told her, oh, Wuthering Heights was like her biggest success, and she, oh, I didn't know that, let me listen to that one. So, and she liked it. So we can't assume that they're not going to enjoy things that are old.
The other thing that you could do is actually have them look at what's popular now, where did it come from,
Hmm.
and make the kind of the connections and
Yeah.
how things have changed and how things have stayed the same, and
Hmm.
and what trends come back, because trends always come back. They always do. So
Exactly.
it's wonderful. Any
Mm.
last minute tips for anybody else listening?
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
On the spot. Always.
So, uh, teen up a little. That's what I would say. Try to get in touch with your inner teen. Think of like how you would have liked to be taught, how you would have liked to be talked to, and just implement that on your lessons and your behavior towards them as well. Yeah. And always think that, always have in mind that your students will remember you, uh, not like what you taught them, but how you taught them.
I think
So,
that's really wonderful. There is a quote. If I find it, I'll put it here, but I can't
mhm,
remember exactly. It's be the person you needed when you were younger.
yes. Mhm.
I think it's a wonderful thing to end with.
I'm glad we could end on a high note.
Oh yeah, because we started off with revolution and
Yes.
burning everything, burning down the establishment.
Yeah.
We didn't really burn down the
No, of
establishment because
course not.
we're
Mhm.
very, reasonable people here. So,
Yeah.
I want to thank you again for spending, gosh, almost an hour with me talking about teens and
Thank
parsnips and all
you.
sorts
Oh,
of stuff.
it's my pleasure. I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, absolutely.
I've been kind of binge watching your videos and listening to
I'm
your
flattered.
podcasts, and they're all Amazing. You've been doing a great job.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I'm so happy to add yours to the collection, and I hope that people find it interesting, and you are welcome back anytime.
Thank you. I hope so
Okay.
too.
Ready to join the conversation? Head on over to Instagram at Real Talk and ELT Pod or at Kelly Pennington ELT and send me a message. That's it for me. Take care of yourself, your health, your vibe, and your tribe. Until next time.